on me why this small business administrator would not come here and testify to the $200 billion in fraud. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back, and now I recognize Representative LaLota from New York, from the great state of New York, for 5 minutes.
The great state of New York, Mr.
Great
Chairman.
state.
Yes, sir.
I caught myself.
And thank you, sir, for your leadership on this important issue. And it's important that we get down to the issue of hundreds of billions of dollars being fraudulently stolen from American taxpayers. Mr. Ware, sir, thank you for being here and for your leadership and being accountable to this committee and to the American people. Despite the SBA administrator being timely and properly invited numerous times, the head of the very agency with so much fraud in it sadly is not here today to answer our important questions. As a result of the administrator's absence, my constituents can be left with no other reasonable conclusion that the SBA losing $200 billion is simply not important enough for the SBA administrator to be accountable to this committee and to the American people. The effects of the fraud are not limited to just $200 billion of taxpayer money being lost. There are countless stories of innocent people being victimized by SBA's carelessness. One such example, Inspector, occurred in my district. A constituent in my district fraudulently had loans taken out in her name in excess of $90,000. My constituent did not find out about this fraud until way after it was initiated and too late to reverse, when the bank sent her a note in the mail indicating her of that fraud. The criminals who stole $90,000 in her name used a fake license and a Social Security card to open that account. The lender told her that they had not run a credit check because the SBA is required to pay them back even if the borrower does not. As a result, my constituent ultimately had to freeze her own credit for 7 years because of these incidents. This severely limits her freedom to do things like buy a car, buy a home, and acquire insurance or even cell phone service. My constituent is far from the only victim of COVID fraud, and SBA must make it a priority to continue to investigate those who have committed fraud and recover as much of the money as stolen as possible. Mr. Ware, sir, the Office of the Inspector General and SBA have recovered about $30 billion of the potentially $200 billion of fraud. That's only about 15%. What is the SBA doing to recover the other $170 billion? How can the SBA be more successful in getting more taxpayer money back? And how much does the OIG expect it will be able to recover? And what is the timeline for these investigations, sir?
Thank you. So it's important to note that it is the responsibility of the Office of Inspector General to carry out law enforcement activity, to make arrests, and to attempt to recover along with SBA, because there could be other reasons SBA is recovering money. It could be people trying to give back the money real quick. And so it's not just for fraud that money would have been recovered. So it's interesting because it seems like that's 30 billion of the 200 billion, but we don't necessarily know yet, right? But we have a prioritization document within our organization, and we are working with law enforcement entities across this nation to bring fraudsters to justice and to claw back as much money as we can. We have an agreement in principle currently with the United States Postal Inspection Service. They will help us with our seizures. The Secret Service did them before.
Would you talk a little about the timeline and your expectations of when, a month from now, 6 months from now, 12 months from now, you'll be able to ascertain the full scope of the issue and be able to provide a remedy to it?
Right. So the remedy to it is these programs are finished. Like was said earlier, the evidence is footprints in concrete. So once we get to the evidence, once we start to investigate each of these potentially fraudulent instances, that's when you will see the results. So that's continuing. It's basically, it's rare that we open a case and it's not what it is.
Okay. Would you keep us posted as to your progress, sir? And if
Absolutely.
Congress can be helpful to help you make more progress?
Yes.
With my remaining time, sir, there's a discrepancy we've been told about, wherein the SBA claims that $30 billion in return funds was not retrieved pandemic lending fraud money, despite OIG reporting that it was. Could you explain the discrepancy, sir?
Yeah, the discrepancy is for two reasons, right? And it was an important one is my office is the independent arbiter of the facts here. So we bring forward what we find based on our criminal investigative work. It wasn't just a data analytics exercise for us. Criminal investigative work, our and our audit work came to bear in this thing, and we have access to data sets that they simply cannot have access to, and it's a good way to see whether the discrepancy is valid or even logical is in their response, the agency's response to the report and the rebuttal contained inside of it.
Time is up.
Thank you. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you being here accountable to us, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
I now recognize